In this edition of INN CEO Talks, I'm joined by Greg Ferron, the CEO of Platinex, and we're talking about battery and energy metals. Greg, welcome.
Yeah, Stuart, nice meeting you, and thanks for having me today.
You know, you have quite a unique strategy to go after this battery and metals market. Give us an overview of what that is.
Yeah, sure. We'll just, big picture. We did make an acquisition recently, earlier this year, of a new copper nickel project. So now we've got two flagship projects. We've got our copper nickel project, which is previously called the Lansdowne House project, located in the Ring of Fire. There's a significant amount of work previously on the project done by Inco, Aurora Platinum, and FNX. And just, battery metals from a macro perspective, we're hearing a lot about it. You're hearing about diversification into different energy classes, electrification of vehicles. And, one of those big sources to power the grid is obviously going to be things like nuclear, gas, all to supply energy to run these vehicles. And a big component of that is going to be the development of nickel, copper resources around the world. And we think owning big strategic projects like this in prolific camps in safe jurisdictions, is a great way to create shareholder value. So that's one of our two strategies.
Well, I think you touched on a couple of very interesting points there. One being safe, reliable jurisdictions, because North America and Europe are really starting to, especially in light of what we see around the delivery of gas and oil from Russia into Europe, we want to know that we have secure sources from partners that we trust. And this is a big part of why it's so important to be in, North American jurisdictions.
Yeah, that's correct. And, and that's the other part of our strategy is really to acquire, big district scale projects, that's something strategic, something unique. So in the case of our Shining Tree Gold project, we're located in the southern part of the Abitibi in Timmins Camp. There's at least 4 operating mills nearby. You've got Newmont further to the left, developing the Borden mine. And as you move across east, you've got IM Gold developing the massive Côté Gold project. You've got Alamos's Young-Davidson to the west of us. You've got Kirkland recently directly in our camp, our neighbor, as well as a fast-growing company called Aris Gold. So they're all developing gold resources in the Shining Tree camp. It's got infrastructure, skilled labor. So our goal there is just to develop the resources and look to exit as these projects are consolidated. And then the same thing with our new copper nickel project, our new flagship project in the Ring of Fire region. I was just up in Thunder Bay last week at a conference. The key chiefs at Waitakere and Martin Falls were talking about the development of that camp with Wailu's recent $600 million investment, buying a very similar project to what we have, although we don't have quite the same grades, but a similar, much larger resource they acquired. And that's our strategy there. Is we bought the project prior to the BHP Wailu proxy battle and takeover battle, for Naran's asset. We got it very cheap, 100% owned. And as we drill it and develop the resources and the infrastructure is put in place by the governments, these assets are going to become very valuable. In the case of the Ring of Fire, you're looking at another Sudbury-sized camp, potentially in the northern part of Ontario. So it just needs juniors and mid-tiers and majors developing the resources to make the camp economic. And, Canada, Ontario is going to be a great jurisdiction to supply that copper nickel to the battery metal sector.
So what's your status right at the moment on both of these projects? You talked about drills in the ground. What do we know about the inferred and confirmed resource in each?
Okay. Yeah. So there's been a lot of change at Platinex. I got involved a couple of years ago on the board, and about a year ago or 9 months ago, the founder, Jim Trussler, well-respected geologist in the industry, he'd been active for 55 years working with Teck and Falconbridge, and he put together this company. So when he went into retirement, and he's still on the board today, providing us technical advice, I was a good fit to step in as CEO. So we've, changed the board. We put in a new shareholder base. We recapitalized the company, raising about $4 to $5 million since I've been involved. So, in light of the market conditions right now, we're only doing work that's really going to create both short and long-term value. So the key thing we're doing on the two projects, one, we put together a world-class technical committee, specialists in nickel and copper metal, and specifically in the Ring of Fire, to help develop the drilling strategy. And the key thing we're doing right now is meeting with the local First Nations, Aboriginal communities, getting to know them as we're new in the community and as we move through the permitting process. So as that's completed, we'll look to begin drilling the W2 project this winter. And that's where we think we'll add a lot of shareholder value, both getting that permit and building that relationship with the community, and then stepping out and expanding on that historical drilling where you saw up to 200 meters of low-grade copper nickel mineralization, fairly close to surface. And then within that, you see these wider, higher grade sections of copper nickel. And we just like to get out and infill and twin some of these holes and step out and expanding that historical resource. And that Shining Tree project, that was a past producing mine. We've continued to consolidate and grow that land package. So we have 2 crews in the ground now. They're just looking at the new areas of the project, low cost work in light of the market conditions. They're sampling, trenching, doing golden till work, geochem work across new areas of the project. And at the same time, in-house, we're looking at modeling the former producing mine, the historical resources, the drilling that Platinex has done, and just coming up with the best strategy on where you drill that project next. So that's the current work.
Yeah. So in both of your projects, you've got some pretty substantial neighbors. Are they paying attention to what you're doing, and are you in any kinds of discussions with them? Because as you pointed out, you want to be able to expand this out and work with, get this to the point where a major will, become involved.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's, as you're well aware, that's a big strategy for the juniors, and that's one way to create value. Obviously, market conditions has a big impact on the upside of these companies. Work on the projects is obviously a second way to create value. So that's what we're focused on right now. And then ultimately M&A and consolidation is another one. So in the case of the Ring of Fire, you just saw a major player from Australia, Wailu, run by Andrew Forst. He got involved, and I would expect probably within a few years, there'll be 2 or 3 other big players to develop that camp. Very much what happened like in Sudbury, which is southern area of Ontario. So in the meantime, the juniors are starting to get more active in that camp, and we'll grow the resources, and ultimately I think these areas will be consolidated by juniors or by the majors. So of course, we're always talking to the players in the camp. And in the case of Timmins, I do think that beside us, you've got this monster 10, 15 million ounce gold resource owned by IAM Gold called Côté Gold. I think the same thing will happen with Shining Tree. You've got 4 or 5 million ounces now in 3 or 4 different owners. I think ultimately that whole camp will get consolidated by one individual. And you've recently seen Kirkland, which is now an Eagle, and Eris get directly in our camp. So I think one of those 2 or Alamos would be likely candidates to consolidate that resources.
So with the market conditions as they are right at the moment, investors, as you know, are a little bit, okay, where do I go? Why is this now the right time for them to be looking at you?
Yeah, well, I think we've all learned, especially in the last 6 months, and the mining sector has been well aware of this for decades, that there is a shortage of energy. There's a shortage of base metals, in particular copper, nickel, lithium, uranium, to power the world economies. And so I think as the markets settle down, people will begin to put money back in energy and metals. And in particular, they're going to be looking for safe jurisdictions like Canada, Australia, to ensure big global economies like China, the US, Europe have steady supplies in their backyard or with reliable partners. So I think the junior sector, it's very cheap right now. The valuations, there's a lot of opportunity to create value over the long term. You're seeing some decent movements in certain sectors of the market, like lithium, uranium, copper, nickel, and you'll probably start seeing the money moving down over the next 6 to 12 months to the juniors. So there's a lot of value if you pick good management teams with good projects with the right commodities in the right location, and investors will do very well if they have a good diversified portfolio.
Really good time to be looking at Platinex. Thank you very much for coming in and sharing with us your two remarkable projects, the shape that the company's in following restructuring, and why now is a good time to be looking at the company.
Okay, great. Thanks, Stu. Pleasure meeting you. Have a great day.